How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and to another installment of mid-season evaluation. In this episode, I'll be giving a review and an honest opinion on how the Atlanta Reign and Seoul Dynasty have performed through their first 14 games of the year. Since Atlanta has the slightly worse record, they're up first. As of right now, the Atlanta Reign are in the top half of the standings. They currently sit at 7-7 with a +3 map differential, and would you look at that? The Reign are the first team in the series to have a positive map differential. That's pretty neat. But anyway, Atlanta is top 10 in the league in terms of their record, which is definitely an achievement to be proud of. How is it that the Reign even got here to begin with, you may be asking? Let's take a look at how the first half of the year has gone for them, starting with the offseason. Coming into the 2019 Overwatch League season, the Atlanta Reign immediately caught the attention of everybody by signing the tracking legend himself, Dafran. This was a moment of excitement for all, as Dafran seemed like he no longer had interest in being a pro player after a stint with Selfless. Needless to say, this was a pleasant surprise that most fans would welcome with open arms. Even if the meta would just be GOATs for the time being, watching Dafran play on stage was going to be a lot of fun. After all, we all know how good Dafran can be. At his peak, he is one of the best players in the entire world. Dafran grinding seriously every single day instead of fooling around on stream was a scary thought, especially if DPS ever became meta again. This Dafran signing was super exciting for sure, but I couldn't help but feel worried about a cloud of drama possibly surrounding Dafran and his new team. Drama seems to follow Dafran everywhere he goes. He's gotten into trouble more than once in the past, and with his mental health clearly appearing to be unstable due to the random outburst he had on Twitter, there was always the chance that he could quit the league at any given moment. But on the bright side, as I mentioned earlier, we all very well know what Dafran is capable of, and if he could maintain a good mindset, then everything would turn out just fine probably. But Dafran wasn't the only reason to be optimistic about this Atlanta squad. They went out and signed good-looking talent from all over the world. I in particular really liked the idea of signing Pokebo and Dako, who made up a solid tank line during their day spent on Element Mystic in Overwatch contenders Korea. Their other Korean player, Erster, had also proven to be a strong player with his ability to play flex DPS at a high level during his time spent in contenders China. I kind of saw the Reign as an expansion team version of the Fusion. They had a very diverse roster that could give others trouble if they got all on the same page synergy-wise. The Reign would play their first game against the Florida Mayhem, and it was more exciting than I ever could have hoped for. Not only did Dafran make his league debut, but we also saw him play Torb on Ilios to open things up. Dafran on Torb is always a good time, but the fact that Torb was being played in the Overwatch League made it all the more exhilarating. Although this match ended up being a 4-0 blowout, it was easily one of my favorite games of the week. Not only did we get to see Dafran play some DPS, but the rest of this Atlanta roster showed what they're capable of. I think they further showcased this in their match against the Fusion. Sure, the Reign would end up losing, but it was pretty close. Pushing last year's runner-ups to their limit is very impressive. Not only was this game super back and forth, but we also got to see some pretty hype individual matchups. Dafran versus Carpe and Dako versus Poco were the ones that stood out to me, and the idea of seeing these teams play again sometime in the future had me pumped up. After a tough loss, the Reign showed how resilient and confident they are in their own abilities by ripping off 2 straight wins in a row. We even got to see a wild Reddit play from Dafran and Masa when they pulled off the over-the-roof Graviton Surge against the Eternal on Hollywood. After a 3-1 start to the stage, the Reign proceeded to lose 2 games in a row. In one, they couldn't seem to figure out the Wrecking Ball DPS comps of the Hunters, and the other game came against a Resurgent Gladiators team that used this game as a catalyst to go on a massive winning streak later down the line. Now Atlanta's playoff hopes would come down to their final game against the Outlaws. This would be their first major test of the year to prove they have the clutch factor. The Reign were able to win a tightly contested game 3-1, allowing them to clinch a Stage 1 playoff berth. In Atlanta's first stage of existence, they made the playoffs and went 4-3. What a fantastic way to start your journey as an expansion team. Sure, they would go on to lose in the first round to the Fusion, but it was once again a tightly contested game just like in week 1. Before stage 2 got underway, the Reign went through some major changes, the first of which would be the announcement of Dafran's retirement. This news was unbelievably sad to hear, but I can't say that I was all that surprised. It was clear that Dafran no longer had the mental fortitude to handle the life of a pro player, and he hinted at this by saying he was thinking of quitting more than once on his stream. Losing a potential superstar caliber player like Dafran would certainly hurt the team moving forward. They decided to compensate for this loss by acquiring Babybay from the San Francisco Shock. Now obviously, Babybay is no Dafran, but he too was a great player in the past, so I had faith that he would do alright, and sure enough, he was actually a decent Zarya. His stats aren't anything groundbreaking, but his 10,230 damage per 10 minutes is good enough for 10th best in the league. I personally believe that Babybay did a fine job of replacing Dafran during stage 2. This wasn't the only change made by the Reign though. They also signed the flex tank player Fried from the LA Gladiators Legion. At first people assumed that he would just be the backup who maybe got subbed in to play some Sombra once in a while, but the signing turned out to be so much more than that. While these rumors have never been confirmed, Dako supposedly caused a lot of internal drama for the Reign during stage 1. As a result of the trouble he was causing, Dako was benched for the first 2 weeks of Stage 2. According to the esports journalist and blogger Halo of Thoughts, Dako was causing many internal issues for his team. Not only was he supposedly throwing and acting toxic during scrims when the team wasn't playing the way he wanted, but he even yelled at his non-Korean teammates and blamed them when losing games. Like I said, these are just rumors, so I have no idea if any of this is actually true, but Dako not playing the first 4 games off the stage when he was clearly a better option than Fried makes you believe that maybe he really was being punished. But you know what? Even though Fried wasn't amazing, I don't think he was as bad as some people seem to think he was, and it's unfair to strictly blame the absence of Dako on this team's early failure during Stage 2. The team as a whole definitely could have played better. Not only did they lose 3 straight games to start their stage, but 2 of those losses came in embarrassing fashion after getting reverse swept by the Uprising and losing to a Valiant team that was 0-8 at the time. After a tough start, something strange seemed to happen during their game against the NYXL, which also happened to be when Dako returned. The Reign not only defeated the NYXL, but they did so in dominant fashion by winning the first 3 maps of the set. At one point, it got so bad that the NYXL were even getting spawn camped on King's Row. How a struggling Reign team comes out on top against one of the strongest squads in the league is something I still don't fully understand. Just when I thought I couldn't get any more confused, the Reign failed to take advantage of this confidence booster by losing to the Charge. Coming into this game, the Charge were 0-5 and had only won 2 maps, so to see the Reign fall to them was just weird. And to make the situation even more bizarre, the Reign proceeded to beat the NYXL again during week 5. Somehow Atlanta lost to a few of the bottom teams in the league, but then also defeated the NYXL twice in the same stage. How does something like that even happen? The Reign would go on to finish Stage 2 at 3-4, which wasn't good enough to make stage playoffs, unfortunately. This was honestly one of the strangest stages I've ever seen for a team in the history of the Overwatch League. Although the Reign have been pretty up and down so far, I've decided to give them a B as their midseason grade. Not only did this team play slightly above my expectations, but they also made a stage playoff appearance and proved they could defeat other strong teams. The Reign appear to have potential, and I think they could be pretty good in the future, especially if the meta becomes more DPS centric. If you're an Atlanta fan, you should have high hopes for your team right now. If they can maintain their current position in the standings, then they would qualify for the play-in tournament where they would get the opportunity to earn a spot in the postseason. Stage 3 is just around the corner. Let's see what you've got, Atlanta. Now it's time for the Seoul Dynasty. Just like the Reign, the Dynasty currently sit at 7-7, but their stronger map differential allows them to be 1 spot higher at 9th place. After a disappointing 2018 campaign where the team failed to meet their high expectations, the Dynasty made some major changes. After coming to the realization that Miro was not the player he used to be, Seoul decided to make a major upgrade to their main tank position by acquiring Fissure from the LA Gladiators. The team rounded out their offseason by also signing Marvel, Michelle, Jexay, and Fitz. After getting Fissure, who was widely regarded as a top 5 main tank in the league last year, I believe that Seoul would come back with a vengeance and would more than likely be a top team in the league. I was ready to see what this team could do. The idea of a Fissure and Zumba tank line had me very excited. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen the Dynasty roll out with this tank lineup yet, and while it is a little disappointing, it was clear that Michelle was the better option due to his exceptional Diva and Sombra play. The early parts of Stage 1 showed some mixed results, and it was honestly kind of hard to tell if Seoul had improved. Sometimes they look strong, but other moments not so much. This is evident by how the first 3 weeks of their stage went. Seoul couldn't seem to get out of that win-loss loop. They started week 1 off by beating the Gladiators and then losing to Dallas. They followed by beating the Hunters in week 2, but then proceeded to lose both the NYXL and Boston Uprising games in week 3. After 5 games, the Dynasty were 2-3. Stage playoffs were still a realistic goal, but they had to win their next 2 games if they even wanted to have a chance. They started strong by crushing the Justice, and now it all came down to their week 5 showdown against the London Spitfire. It was a win-or-go-home scenario, and the Dynasty were taking on one of their Korean rivals. They had actually never beaten London coming into this match, so there was extra pressure on them. To make matters worse, Seoul has never been able to clutch out a game when it's all on the line. They choked away 2 stage playoff appearances last year and an opportunity to be part of the postseason, but this Dynasty team is different, and they proved that by not only defeating the Spitfire, but by making it look kind of easy. Seoul had finally arrived. They were playoff bound for the first time ever after finishing in 7th place with a 4-3 record. And what better way to prove it was no fluke you made it there by trying to pull off an upset against the NYXL. They too were unbeaten against Seoul up until this game, and the Dynasty were 0-5 against the NYXL in the all-time head-to-head matchup, so they were once again a big-time underdog. And yet again, the Dynasty showed the world that they are no longer the same chokers from last year by defeating the undefeated at the time NYXL 3-1. Michelle, in my opinion, really showed his worth during this game in particular. His overall play was incredible, and his Sombra appeared to be very deadly. He made the lives of Jonak and Meko a nightmare. After pulling off one of the biggest upsets seen in a long time, the Dynasty advanced to the semifinals where they would have a date with the eventual stage champions in the Vancouver Titans. Sure, Seoul would go on to get dominated in this game, but the fact that they even made it this far is something to be proud of. They showed all of their haters that they were no longer the same team from last year. defeating two of their rivals who they had never won against before and making the stage playoffs is proof of this. Oh, and before I forget to mention it, during stage 1 the Dynasty signed 2 new players. They acquired a flex support named Hailey and a DPS player named Illicit. There really isn't much else to say since both of them have not seen a single second of playtime, but I thought I'd let you know anyway just in case you weren't already aware. After a successful stage 1, the Dynasty decided to make a change coming into their next game against the Gladiators. Instead of running Fleta on Zarya, the coaches decided to start Fitz over him. After losing their first game of the stage, Seoul decided to make another lineup adjustment by benching Fissure in favor of Marvel. Another change that wasn't quite as big but will not go unnoticed in this video was Toby becoming the full-time starter on main support instead of Jexay. This one I wasn't really all that concerned about. Sure, Jexay was good, but Toby has always been a very capable Lucio player, so I wasn't very worried about this. At first, I really couldn't grasp what Seoul was thinking. Fissure and Fleta were arguably the 2 best players on the team, and seeing them benched was not sitting right with me at all. And before I continue, I've heard some people say that Fleta was not playing due to a wrist injury, but I personally have no idea if this is actually true since I've been unable to find any public record of this. But anyway, it wasn't until their game in week 3 that I finally started to understand. After absolutely crushing Dallas, I was starting to realize that Fitz was actually better at Zarya than Fleta. The stats prove it too. I'll put them up on the screen if you don't believe me. Take a look at the difference in damage. Fitz averages nearly 1,000 more damage per 10 minutes and he dies less. And in terms of the Fissure benching, well, for that one you have to look beyond the stats. As we all know, Fissure likes to be aggressive while trying to make individual plays for his team, and in a tank-heavy meta like GOATS, it's unbelievably difficult for your main tank to pop off without a crazy amount of support from his or her team. I could be wrong about this, but I think Seoul was tired of having to constantly commit so many resources to him during fights. Marvel, on the other hand, prefers to play more passively. Because of this playstyle change, the other Seoul players could play a bit more comfortably. The team seemed to adapt to these new changes very well once week 3 came, and Seoul did an excellent job of carrying this momentum of a big win into the Dallas homestand as they went on to win both of their games that week. Marvel and Fitz continued to prove why benching Fissure and Fleta may have been a good thing as well. Unfortunately for the Dynasty, their final 2 opponents of the stage were really strong. Not only did they have to play the Vancouver Titans yet again this stage, but they also had to face a much improved Spark squad that looked stronger and stronger every single game. After losing 4-0 to the Titans, it would yet again come down to Seoul's final game to decide if they made playoffs. It was either win and get in, or be sent home packing. Would Seoul be clutch again, or would the Spark be too much for them to handle? In heartbreaking fashion, the Dynasty fell to the Spark 3-1 in a close series. They would finish the stage 3-4 as they went on to miss the playoffs. They came so freaking close to making the playoffs for a second time in a row, even with their tough schedule. I have nothing but praise for the Dynasty. You guys definitely deserve to be in the running for the overall playoffs. With them being in 9th place, their odds of making the end of year playoffs, or at least qualifying for the play-in tournament to decide the 7 and 8 seeds of those playoffs, are pretty high. I personally believe that Seoul had a fantastic start to their year, which is the exact reason why I'm giving them a B+ as their midseason grade. Not only did they make the stage 1 playoffs, they also made it into the second round. Defeating the London Spitfire and NYXL, which are teams you were historically bad against, earns you some bonus points. Seoul has removed their label of being known as chokers who can't beat other solid Korean teams, and I probably would have boosted their grade up a little more too if their record was just a tiny bit better. They have the same average record as 4 other teams in the league, so it's hard for me to say they were above and beyond most teams. But still, overall, I'm really proud of these guys, and I can't wait to see what's next for them. But now the question becomes, do they continue to roll with the same lineup we saw in Stage 2, or will more changes be on the horizon? You'll have to tune in next week when they play their first game to find out. With that being said, that is going to wrap up this installment of Midseason Evaluation. What did you guys think of my reviews for each of these teams? Feel free to let me know down in the comment section, and don't forget to leave your own grades while you're at it. If you enjoyed today's content, then be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching today's video, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.